before I get too far into ownership on my Shelby GT350, I wanted to go over everything about the car, how much mileage is on it, what mods are already on it. Some of you may have seen from other videos, if you looked really close, you may have picked up on a few things that are not factory for this car, and go over some of the things that I want to change. Alright, starting off on the inside, as far as the mileage, it has 30,552 miles on it to 2017. Everything in here is actually factory. Nothing's been changed out at all. Still has the factory shifter in it. Eventually might do a short throw. Alcantara steering wheel. The side's a little beat up. I tried cleaning it, but came out a little bit rough. But this was all flattened down before, but this side came out pretty well. Now moving to underneath the hood, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Some of you may have noticed beforehand that this does have an aftermarket intake on it. This is a PMAS intake. I'm not 100% sure that this was even meant for the 5.2. I believe this could be a 5.0 liter for the regular Coyote thrown on this car. I'm not positive, but I did buy a OEM intake system that will be going on. So I'll be replacing this and probably selling this once that comes in. You guys have seen this before, but I do have a Ford Performance oil separator. I am getting one for over on the driver's side as well, but that's going to have to wait until I get the OEM intake set up as it bolts on to the factory airbox. One thing that probably none of you have seen or been able to tell because I haven't mentioned it, it's really hard to look down in there. I'll have to get a undershot view. Hopefully you guys can see that, but this does have long tubes on it, American racing headers on it. I'm not positive of the size. You can get a better look on the driver's side here. You can see the primary tube, hopefully. There it is right there. So when I first called about this car, I was told it had aftermarket exhaust. I was expecting a catback, you know, something like that. Seems pretty typical to do to any Mustang, is swapping out the catback system. But the mufflers on this are actually the OEM setup. And when I got to the dealership, I was looking the car over, and I'm like, well, this has stock exhaust. What was the salesman talking about as far as aftermarket exhaust on it? And I worked my way to the front, and I said, there's no way this has long tubes on it already. And it actually does. You can't really see this side. There's like so much stuff in the way. But that tube is down there. That's what I noticed first. I came to the passenger side and looked in the engine bay, and I saw that American Racing Headers tag on there. I'm like, holy crap, this has a $2,000 exhaust system on it already from the headers down, and it still has resonators on it. So this does sound a little bit different from a standard GT350 because of the long tubes, but it still sounds incredible regardless of, you know, what kind of exhaust you put on these. They just sound so good anyway. This does have the electronics package. This is an option that came on pretty much all the GT350s. I definitely wanted this no matter what year I got or anything like that. I wanted the bigger screen, wanted the big touch screen. I have a big one in the Bronco too as part of the Lux package, and that's something that I didn't want to forego when it came to looking for GT. You could option these with the comfort seats. I definitely did not want those. I wanted the Recaro seats, and I was lucky that this one did have that. So I had the electronics package, had the Recaro seats, so that's definitely a big plus, at least for what I wanted. This has 305 wide tires on the front and the rear. It's a standard 19-inch wheel. These came on all the GT350s, along with these 6 piston Brembos on the front and the 4 piston Brembos on the rear. Can't see the width of the tires as much from the back, but it's pretty crazy having 305s on the front. These standard came with 295, but these were upgraded before I bought the car. Still got pretty decent tread on them. These are Yokohama Advent Sport V105s. Seem to be a pretty good tire. You can see there it's a 305 3019. These also have 15-inch drilled rotors. Later on they changed the rotors up on these, so they weren't drilled, they were just regular surface rotors with not drilled, not slotted or anything like that. But for these years they were drilled. I did add the Shelby lettering, but that's not really a mod or anything. I just really wanted that to stand out more than the factory stamped lip on it, which doesn't show up as well. So that will conclude the overview on the car. I just kind of wanted to give a baseline for where this car was when I got it. Other than the oil separator, I haven't done anything to this. I do have some other parts, as I mentioned before, the air intake, putting that back to OEM that I plan on doing, and a few other little things. But I'll do a video a little bit later on with the direction that I really want to take this in, as far as building this for big horsepower like the Cobra.
Come on, don't bullshit me. Bullshit. 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 You said so. It's all bullshit.
Or making this even more track oriented and doing that kind of stuff with it, because it's really hard to do both with the same car. So you kind of have to build one for one direction and one for the other direction. Like, I won't be able to really track the Cobra, but it makes a lot of power in a straight line. So with this, it's a question of, do I want to do the same thing with it, have two cars that are built like that, or do I want to do a more track focused type car and build on what this car is already good at anyway. But that'll be for a later video for all the mods and stuff that I do have planned for this. If you're new here or made it this far into the video, make sure to leave it a like. Also, if you're new, feel free to subscribe. The button is down below. There'll be a lot more Terminator Cobra content this summer, along with more GT350 content this summer as well. We're just starting to get into the part of the year where the weather's getting good, and it's still cold in the mornings quite a bit, at least the time of recording this, depending on when it actually gets released. But the weather is improving, so there will be a lot more car stuff going on, events to go to, cruises, car shows, stuff like that. With all that being said, above all else, thanks for watching.